As watershed management agencies, conservation authorities are responsible for water and related land management in partnership with the Province of Ontario and local municipalities. The mandate of the NPCA is to ensure the conservation, restoration, and responsible management of water, land, and natural habitats in the Niagara region, portions of Haldimand County, and the City of Hamilton through programs that balance human, environmental, and economic needs.
My name's Steve Miller. I'm Senior Manager of Water Resources with the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority. My job, it's to understand the amount of rain, precipitation that falls on the landscape and how it runs over and across it. The primary mandate of the Conservation Authority is to protect people and property from natural hazards, much like flooding. The first step is to identify where those flood-prone areas are in order that we can keep development outside of it. We don't want folks building a brand new house in the middle of a flood-prone area. We take a look at how much rain falls on the landscape, where it flows to, how high it's going to get across that landscape. We identify that, we map it, and then we direct development outside of it. We use the 100-year storm. Well, the 100-year storm occurs once every 100 years, or has a 1% chance of happening every year. We understand, what the land is, what the land use is, and that helps us determine how high that water is going to flood on up. It's a compromise between keeping people safe and away from a watercourse and allowing folks to develop land close to a watercourse. That is seen as an adequate compromise between keeping people safe and freeing up land for development.
The NPCA has a wide range of programs and services. Some, like flood forecasting and source water protection, are mandated by the Provincial Conservation Authorities Act, while others are a collaboration between the NPCA and other organizations like local municipalities and Niagara Escarpment Commission.
My name is Jessica Abrahams, and I am a watershed planner for the Conservation Authority. I've always wanted to work in conservation. I have a big interest in working on the side of the environment. I'm a watershed planner, and what I would do is I would determine whether there's regulated features on that parcel of land, and then provide technical comments from a policy standpoint, from a biology standpoint, or engineering standpoint. So some of the other applications that we might receive would be from the Niagara Escarpment Commission. We provide comments on some of their applications as well. All of the local towns and municipalities will circulate us on Planning Act applications. Different towns and municipalities will sometimes call us up just for technical advice or policy advice. A lot of consultants also contact us on a regular basis to find out, different information regarding policy.
Development taking place on these lands may require permission from the Conservation Authority to confirm that the control of flooding, erosion, or the conservation of land, to name a few, are not affected. They also regulate any changes made to local water bodies or regulated wetlands.
My name's Adam Aldworth, and I'm the ecological technician with the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority. I've always been interested in conservation, and I have a background in biology. I love the variety. I love the variation in my day. I spend a lot of time looking at our mapping, looking at the policy, looking at different studies that have been done, and then I get to get out in the field and get my eyes on different features with our planners or with the proponents of permit or planning applications. So my role as ecological technician at the NPCA involves providing technical support to our watershed planners. So I provide comment on permit applications and planning applications to ensure that there will be no negative impact to the ecological function of our regulated features. We regulate a variety of features, including shorelines, valley lands, wetlands, watercourses, and hazard lands, which include hazard slopes, dunes, and karst formations, and floodplain. My primary focus tends to be watercourses and then the associated valley slopes with those, and wetlands. The biggest thing that I get in my job now is disagreement over what a wetland is. Wetlands are not what you would typically think of as a wetland. You're not necessarily walking in with your rubber boots or hip waders. 75% of our wetlands in Niagara are swamp wetlands that, if you didn't know, you could mistake very easily for a forest.
One of the things that we can't do at the Conservation Authority is we cannot stop development. If somebody was calling about a garage that they wanted to put in their backyard and it's slightly encroached within a wetland or a watercourse buffer, that would be a situation where we would probably say, okay, have you checked with the town if this requires a planning application? If it doesn't, then we would likely issue a permit for that particular scenario. Planning applications are done through a pre-consultation process through the town or city, and all of the agencies comment on that application, as opposed to somebody applying for a permit would just come directly through the NPCA. We always try to work with applicants to find solutions, not just telling them no right away. We're always looking to find a way, okay, if we can't do this, what can we do?
The NPCA is responsible for the review of planning applications such as subdivisions and zoning bylaw amendments affected by natural environmental hazards or natural heritage features, and provides advice on potential environmental impacts. In order to review applications, the NPCA relies on scientific data and sophisticated mapping layers to help us see the various layers and features of the watershed.
My name is Tara Gady. I'm responsible for providing primarily analytical support to the integrated watershed planning and watershed management divisions. We have generated a lot of the data in-house through source data such as a digital elevation model or ortho imagery. It's all part of an adaptive management process to ensure that we're using the most up-to-date data possible for our landscape. We also obtain some data from other sources such as the Niagara region, the province, and various other respective stakeholders where appropriate. Our mapping estimates how the natural hazards may impact potential development on a proponent's property and suggest areas that are better conserved for their natural heritage value and contribution to the landscape. The NPCA is an evidence-based scientific organization offering management recommendations. Therefore, it is imperative we have accurate mapping pertaining to our natural resources. Advice based on inaccurate data could lead to short-sighted decisions and lead to inefficiencies in our day-to-day operations.
As part of the NPCA enforcement and compliance, good forestry practices are always encouraged. This helps grow healthy plants, maintain ecological processes and wildlife habitats, as well as products. NPCA forestry staff are dedicated to ensuring that good forestry practices are constantly being implemented across the watershed.
My name is Dan Drennan. My main role is to do with forestry on NPCA property and giving advice and direction to private landowners. Good forestry is a term that we use as foresters to say, like, what we're going to do on the forest is going to be sustainable, not just for the landowner, but for the forest itself. Things are going to be done in a sustainable manner. Like if there's going to be a thinning or harvest operation, that's not going to be detrimental to the woodland.
So this is an area that was logged 2 years ago under a permit, as I mentioned. You see here all the tops from the top of the tree that was cut, and they leave the tops because it allows it to break down. A lot of times it's used for habitat. Like I usually see a lot of rabbits living in these areas where the tops are, where you're coming in and picking the trees to remove. The tree marker, who's also a professional forester, he's marking trees that say, okay, this tree's not going to probably survive another 12 years. The trees that are being left are actually like the parent trees. They produce seed, which fall during the year, and that's what germinates. So it's a sustainable approach, and all this is done naturally. Like we don't have to come in and tree plant like we have to do in, say, the clear cut method up north. But here, we just allow the trees that we leave to do the reforestation. Completely natural, 100% natural. We're using the seeds from this environment to regenerate the next forest that's coming in on the forest floor.
As we have learned, the NPCA plays a diverse role when it comes to compliance, permitting, and planning in the Niagara Peninsula watershed. It is important to remember that the reason development and construction are regulated by various agencies is to ensure that people and their property are safe. A particular milestone in Conservation Authority history was the impact of a devastating event, Hurricane Hazel in 1954. This storm mobilized the need for managing Ontario's watersheds on a regional basis. As a result, the provincial government amended the Conservation Authorities Act to enable conservation authorities to acquire lands for recreation and conservation purposes, and to regulate that land for the safety of the community.
The impacts of Hurricane Hazel were profound. Back in 1954, Hurricane Hazel slammed into the eastern seaboard of the U.S., slammed into Toronto. 11 inches of rain, 12 hours, 81 people were killed, $1 billion damaged in today's money. Because of Hurricane Hazel, the provincial government said, hey, conservation authorities, you guys are already doing stuff to manage resources. Well, we're going to have you undertake programs, acquire land in order to keep people safe from natural hazards. It was really that Hurricane Hazel event that was the start of the Conservation Authority's responsibility to undertake these programs to development away from watercourses to provide flood forecasting and warning.
Over time, conservation authorities have become involved in a wide range of activities depending on the resource management needs of local residents, member municipalities, and the province. The NPCA has knowledgeable and passionate staff who work with our communities to find solutions that work for everyone when it comes to compliance, permits, and planning. Through this work, we can help ensure that the Niagara Peninsula watershed can remain a natural heritage gem with incredible areas to explore, a place where people want to visit and where people want to live. When we find solutions that work for the environment and our community, the watershed can be more resilient in the face of climate change, and future generations can continue to enjoy the wild spaces we hold dear to our hearts.